At the start of this season, if you told a Manchester United fan that their club would be sitting third place in the Premier League table, pushing hard for the Champions League football, with a manager the fans actually laugh, they would have laughed in your face. And honestly, funny enough, because this is the club that finished 15th last season, 15th, their lowest point tally in the top flight football in over half a century, no European football, no identity, no hope, the kind of season that makes you stare at your club's badge and genuinely question your life choices. And yet, here we are, third place Manchester United, Champions League on the horizon, a feel-good story nobody saw coming. This is the full story of how Manchester United went from one of the most embarrassing clubs in England to one of the best teams in the Premier League this season. And it starts as most great comeback stories do. We're hitting absolute rock bottom first. To appreciate how remarkable this turnaround is, you need to understand just how bad things were. Last season, United finished 15th. Let that sink in properly. Manchester United, 20 Premier League titles, the most successful club in English Premier League football, the club of Cantona, Ronaldo, Giggs, finished 15th. They were closer to the relegation zone than they were to the top 4. At one point during the season, they were playing football so bad that their own fans were leaving Old Trafford at halftime. Not because of traffic, but because of pain. So much pain they couldn't endure it. So heading into this season, the board did what Manchester United boards do. They hired a new manager and hoped for the best. The new manager was Ruben Amorim. And look, Amorim wasn't a bad disappointment on paper. He'd done genuinely impressive things at Sporting FC. Smart tactician, clear philosophy, the kind of profile that makes you sense when you are trying to rebuild a broken football club. The problem was the execution. Amorim came to Manchester United wanting to be the manager. His words, not mine. Not just a head coach following orders, but a guy with the full control over everything. The transfer, the tactics, the culture. And United being United said yes to that in an interview room and then quietly said no once he actually started. Amorim won only 24 of his 63 games in charge across all competitions, a win rate of just 38%. That's the worst of any Premier League or any permanent United manager since Alex Ferguson retired. In the Premier League specifically, it was even grimmier. His average of 1.3 points per game was the worst of any United manager in the Premier League era. For context, that's worse than David Moyes, worse than Louis van Gaal, worse than Jose Mourinho at his most chaotic. But the football wasn't the last straw, it was what happened at the board meeting that ended everything. In January 2026, United were sixth. Results are poor, the dressing room is unsettling, and Amorim sits down for what was supposed to be a routine tactical debrief with the director of football. But it didn't go as planned. The director of football encouraged Amorim to be more proactive with how he sets up his players, pointing to a 1-0 win over Newcastle on Boxing Day where United played well with a fallback. But 4 days later against Wolves, Amorim reverted to his preferred back three to match up against a side with just 2 points from 18 games. And Amorim still refusing to adapt his system against them. The stubbornness was something else. The director of football at United, Wilcox, delivered the feedback in a calm and measured way, but was met with sources described as overly emotional response. Then came the press conference. Amorim stood in front of the cameras after a draw with Leeds and told the world he came to United to be a manager, not a head coach. He publicly called out Wilcox to do his job on camera in a press conference broadcast to millions. That's the football equivalent of going on Twitter to subtweet your boss while you are still employed there, except worse because it was live. And in less than 24 hours after that press conference, Manchester United sacked him. And just like that, 14 months after arriving, Amorim was gone. United were set, no European football, no momentum, and now no new manager. Most clubs will panic hire someone, muddle through the last few months, finish 5th or 7th, and spend the summer going through the whole process again. But Manchester United did something nobody expected. The club's first move was to hire Darren Fletcher, the under-18 coach, a man who had managed 15 youth matches and 0 senior ones. That's like asking your little brother to drive because the Uber cancelled. United fans were terrified, but Fletcher was only ever a short-term bridge. Within days, United made the appointment that would change everything. Michael Carrick. Now, when the name dropped, the reaction was mixed. Carrick is a United legend as a player, no question. 5 Premier League titles, a Champions League, 464 appearances for the club, a genuinely great midfielder, but as a manager, he had a decent spell at Middlesbrough in the Championship. I think that screamed, this man is the man for the job at United. But on the 13th of January, United announced Carrick as the head coach until the end of the season. No permanent titles, no long-term contract. Just sort this out and we'll talk in the summer. And what Carrick did next was frankly extraordinary. Under his leadership, United went from one of the baddest weekends ever to placing third. And that's not a turnaround, that's a full resurrection. That's Lazarus stuff. That's a footballer coming off a serious injury, going to the gym for 3 months, then running a marathon. United had been the best team in the Premier League since Carrick took over. Not top 4, the best. Better than Arsenal, better than City, and since January, nobody in the Premier League has been better than Manchester United. So what did Carrick actually do? How did he fix in 3 months what Amorim couldn't fix in over a year? The first thing Carrick did was to breathe. Genuinely, he came into a dressing room that had been tense, overthought, and emotionally drained under Amorim's management style, and he just calmed it down. Amorim had been much more distant with the squad than expected, leaving coaches to handle duties without much interference. The players felt detached from their manager. There was no warmth in the building. Carrick is the opposite. He knows the clubs. He played there for over a decade. He knows what it feels like to wear the shirt under pressure. The players felt that immediately. The training ground atmosphere shifted within weeks. Tactically, he was smarter about it than people give him the credit for. He didn't rip everything up and started from scratch. He took what Amorim had built, the structure, the defensive organization, and made it more flexible. Instead of rigidly sticking to a system that the players were clearly uncomfortable in, he let the team adapt based on the opponent. Novel concept of Manchester United apparently. The results were immediate. Wins started coming. Clean sheets started stacking up. Players who had looked lost and uncertain under Amorim suddenly started looking completely different. Bruno Fernandes started looking like the player United paid for again. The younger players started expressing themselves. The schedule helped too. With no European football and early domestic club exits, United had a 24-day break between fixtures at one point. The club's longest schedule gap between games in 111 years. While Arsenal were playing Champions League football, FA Cup matches and Premier League games every 3 days, United were training, resting and preparing. In a weird way, all that embarrassing early cup exit energy became a competitive advantage. They were fresh when everyone was exhausted. So here's where we are as the season closes out. United are still third. Champions League football is almost confirmed. Carrick has been told he's the leading contender for the permanent job, and the most remarkable thing about all of this, nobody predicted this. Go back to the start of the season. Listen to all the content creators. Nobody would have predicted United finishing in top 3. Everyone was going to place them on 6th or 7th or 8th, maybe scrapping Europa League or rebuilding year. A year of pain before the real work begins. Instead, they ended up in the top 3, playing their best football in years with a manager who the fans actually trust, and a genuine sense of optimism around the club for the first time since Alex Ferguson walked out of Old Trafford for the last time. That is not nothing, that's massive. And this is very important. Let's not get carried away. United are third because the teams around them had difficult second halves of the season. Arsenal had been grinding through fixture congestion, Liverpool fell away, Chelsea collapsed, Aston Villa inconsistent. The gap between United and second place is significant. United had also been picking up only 4 points from their last 4 games. Going into this run of fixtures, the good form isn't bulletproof. There are still question marks about the squad depth, about the transfer window this summer, about whether Carrick can do this over a full season with the expectation of Champions League football on top of it all. The rebuild is not complete, it's not even close, but the direction has changed, the feeling has changed, and the football feeling matters more than people admit. At the start of this season, Manchester United were a joke, not a mean joke, not an exaggeration, a genuine embarrassing joke. 5th place finish, worst point tally in decades, fans leaving games early, a manager who couldn't win 1/3 of his games, and now 3rd place Champions League, a loved manager who gets the job done, a dressing room that looks like it actually wants to win, and a fan base that, for the first time in a long time, is excited about going to the Old Trafford on Saturday. Nobody predicted this, not the content creators, not the pundits, not the analysts, not even the most loyal United fans. That's exactly what makes this one of the best stories in Premier League this season. Whether Carrick gets the job or not, he has really done a good job that he needs the credit for. And compared to the last few years, this is more than enough. Drop a comment. Do you think Carrick deserves the job or he doesn't? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because there's more content coming and it only gets better from here.